Hi guys, my name is Dr. Charlotte Ashman. Welcome to my channel where we discuss everything inspirational. Now, in this video, I'll be talking about the miracle working power of God. Guys, some of you would know that I write a book called God is Still in the Miracle Working Business, and you can get that book on Amazon. Now, you might wonder what prompted me to write this book. God is still in the miracle working business. And I wrote this book because I have had a number of things happen to me during the course of my life, which I just cannot explain. And those things I put down to as miracles. And a number of persons, I've spoken to so many persons who say to me, Shalette, I too have had so many things happen that is just inexplicable. So, God is still in the miracle working business. That's a book that basically captures a number of these things. Okay. So, in this particular video, I want to talk to you about how God provided my rent money. And guys, if you want to join me on these lives and just talk about how God has just shown up for you in your life, you're welcome. You can always send me a WhatsApp message, and when we start doing our live stream with audience, we will just be sure to add you, so that you can tell your story. So let's talk about how God provided my rent money. I mean, this is such a fantastic story. Guys, I want to take you back to 2005. I think it was 2005. I was living in Florida. And guys, I was sharing an apartment with a friend of mine. We were both grad students, right? And I remember I needed to come up with my portion of the rent. It was 350 US dollars, and I needed to come up with my portion of the rent. And let me tell you this, guys, I just could not find that money. I couldn't find the $350. I had finished grad school, I was working, but on that particular Friday evening when I needed that $350, I just could not find it. And I'm going to show you, how God really is a miraculous God. So that particular evening, I was in my car and I was driving along, I think it was Broward Boulevard, and I was driving home and I was talking to God and I was like, God, look, I need $350 today because I need to pay my rent. And I said, you know what? I know that heaven is not having a recession. I know that, God, you are not broke. And I know that you control every single bank in this world. You are the banker of all bankers, right? And I know that you have the money. So I was there just talking to God and just asking for that $350. And I was a little bit perturbed because I was thinking, God just have to come through for me today. I needed God to come through for me because there was no way I was gonna go home and just did not have that rent money. And guys, I'm telling you, I'm there talking to God, and I am just saying, God, look, I am here and I'm working in the church. I'm living right. I'm doing everything right. And I want you to show up for me today. I want you to show up for me. I'm depending on you to show up for me today. And I heard a voice in my head say, go to church. And at that time, I was selling art. I used to purchase art from South Africa, and I would supply the galleries in Fort Lauderdale, and they would sell my art for me. And even though the voice was saying go to church, I decided, you know what, let me check some of these galleries to see if anybody sold, if any of them sold anything. So I drove around to a few galleries and nobody sold anything. Man, I was so disappointed. And I was like, seriously, I was getting angry by the minutes. And I was just saying, God, no, man, you're not going good, man. Seriously, you need to do something. And the voice just kept saying to me, go to church, go to church, go to church. Anyway, it was Friday and I didn't think anything was going on at church, but I turned the car around and I started driving towards church. And I was sharing this story with somebody. It's in the God is Still in the Miracle Working Business book. And I was sharing this story with someone and I was saying, you need to know the voice of God. You need to know when God is talking to you, because I'm telling you, that voice that said to me, go to church, that was the voice of God. And even though I didn't want to go to church, I went to church. And I'm going to tell you what happened at church. When I went to church, there was a crusade going on. Now, there was a pastor at church. He was preaching, whom I have never seen. I've never seen this gentleman. Um, and he was a guest preacher that night. And let me tell you this, I sat over on the left side of the church because I was really very mad. Remember, I was just there asking God for this $350 and I didn't see how I was going to get it. So I sat on the left side of church, and the preacher, he was preaching, and he was preaching from Genesis 26. And he was basically talking about a man who was in a famine. And when the man was in the famine, God told him to stay where he was, right? And I'm thinking to myself, why would God tell somebody to stay in a famine? That just doesn't make any sense. And, long and short of the story, God told the man to stay where he was. He in Gerar. And, food is in Egypt. Food was in Egypt. So I'm thinking that the logical thing would be for the people who were in the famine to just go down to Egypt to get food. But God was saying to this man, stay where you were. And again, that's why I say it's important, for us to understand when God is speaking, so we can recognize the voice of God. So the man stayed where he was. And so I'm just listening to this pastor preach the sermon, and I'm just penetrated. I'm listening. I'm just absorbing what he's saying. And he was saying that, the man stayed in the land, in Gerar. And then God told the man to plant a seed. Wow. So I'm saying, why would God tell this man to stay in the famine, and then he's telling him to plant a seed in the famine? That just didn't make any sense. So God is saying to the man, stay where you were. And then God is telling the man to plant in the famine. So I'm thinking, wow, this is crazy. But according to the Bible, the man stayed where he was. The man planted. And you know what? The seed bore 100-fold. That means whatever the man planted just came to fruition, right? And then the Bible said, and then God blessed him. So the 100-fold wasn't even the blessing. After it bore 100-fold, then God blessed him. And I was like, wow, this is just tremendous. I mean, I started applying what the pastor was saying to my life, and I was thinking, okay, so I am in a financial famine. Maybe I need to start to start my business. Maybe I need to plant a seed, a figurative seed. I need to plant a seed. Maybe I need to start a business. And sometimes when you're in a famine, when nothing is going on for you, that's the time to step out in faith. And I thought to myself, okay, I am going to start my online business during my time of famine. And I just believed in my mind that my business was going to bear 100-fold. I mean, it was my business that I started was started on this concept, on this lesson, on this sermon, right? That, somebody could be in a famine and they could plant a seed in a famine, and that seed could bear 100-fold, and that after it bore a 100-fold, God could still bless the person. And he said, that's how I started my business, Go GSAT. It was the first e-learning company in Jamaica and in the Caribbean. That's how it was started. Based on that gave me the oomph. That gave me that was a catalyst. That's what I needed to hear to start that business. Anyway, I'm in the church. Remember now, I still needed the $350 to pay my rent on that day. And I want you to listen to this. So I'm in the church and I'm paying attention to what the pastor is saying. He's telling this story, and I am so enraptured. I'm listening keenly, and I'm putting my life in the story. And the pastor stopped the sermon and he said, who are you? And there was a lady behind me who just got up and started telling who she was. So he said, no, not you, meaning me. And I stood up and I said, my name is Shalette. And he said, what are you doing here, Shalette? And I said, I just finished my master's. And he's like, wow, if I ever tell you, the things that God has planned for you, it will just blow your mind. No, honestly, I needed that $350, and I just wanted to hear that God was going to send that money. I didn't want to hear anything that was planned way in the future. I was like, God, come on now. I need a miracle. I need to hear how I'm going to pay my rent today. Anyway, the pastor prophesied and he said, if he told me what God had planned for me in the future, it would blow my mind. And he told me to just continue walking with God, And it was really a nice prophecy. And I sat down and I just continued listening to the sermon. Now, guys, I want you to understand this. When I say this is a miracle, I want you to understand this. So at the end of his sermon, the pastor said, Shalette, spell your name. And I stood up and I spelled my name. And guys, the pastor, who I've never met, never in my life met this man, his name is Neil Ellis out of the Bahamas, handed me a check for the $350 that I needed. Now, it was only about 45 minutes ago. I was there talking to God and telling God that, God, I know you're not having a famine in heaven. God, I know you're not broke. God, I know that you control every banker. God, I know that you are the banker of all bankers. And in 45 minutes, having directed me to go to church, I got a check for the $350 that I needed. Yes, you will see stories like this in God is still in the miracle working business, because he still is. And you can get a copy of that book on Amazon. God is still in the miracle working business. And guys, when you come to this channel, that's what you're going to hear. This channel, God and Shalette, that's what you're going to hear on this channel. Just miracles. I'll be talking about things that happened to me, things that I chronicle in the God is Still in the Miracle Working Business book. And I'll be inviting others. I've spoken to persons who are going to come and share who have had stage 4 cancer. They've got healed. Persons who they were in a motor vehicle accident and they were pronounced dead on the scene, who just got up and walked. I mean, things like that you're going to hear, on this channel. When we talk about God is still in the miracle working business, we want persons to know that, hey, miracles still happen. God still do miracles to simple persons like us. So if something has happened to you that you just cannot explain how this happened, I want you to get in touch. Right? So you guys, you can always WhatsApp me so we can talk about it on this channel. And of course, my WhatsApp number is 876-351-7777. So thank you so much for watching, and I do look forward to seeing you again in another video. Goodbye.